Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Let's dive right in. I recently discovered that my husband, Nathan, with whom I've been married for 5 years, has been secretly involved in the adult film industry with other women. Before we got married, we dated for 2 years, and we now have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter named Lily. At 34 years old, Nathan was working as a freelance photographer and making less than me, which is why we agreed that he would stay home with our daughter. When we first started dating, one of the things that attracted me to him was his adventurous spirit in the bedroom. He was always open to trying new things, whether it was experimenting with different outfits or exploring unique interests. One of his particular preferences was for role-playing, while I enjoyed the feeling of being in control during our intimate moments. Although I was generally comfortable with this dynamic, there was one area that I struggled with. He had a strong desire for rough play and enjoyed feeling pain during certain activities. This made me anxious and uncomfortable. At his request, I tried to indulge him by being rougher, but it wasn't something that came naturally to me, and it didn't bring me any pleasure. He wanted me to initiate without being asked, but I found it difficult. Unfortunately, after we got married, our relationship started to face challenges due to the pressures of daily life. It became hard to keep up the excitement and spontaneity, especially with my demanding work schedule. Coming home exhausted, while he had been home all day, waiting for me to match his energy, became overwhelming. On top of that, we moved to the other side of the state, far from our family and friends, which added more strain to our relationship. After our daughter was born, Nathan struggled to lose the baby weight and went through a tough period of depression. Those years were the hardest in our marriage, and we contemplated separation more than once. Yet, we decided to seek the help of a marriage counselor, hoping to salvage our relationship. To regain his confidence, Nathan started working out daily, slowly getting back into shape. The only thing that seemed to disappear permanently was his old adventurous spirit. While this didn't bother me much, it did take some of the pressure off me. He would occasionally accuse me of being emotionally distant because of my busy work life, but I believed that I was providing everything he needed. I trusted him with full access to my bank account. He made purchases without asking, but I didn't think much of it. I assumed that if he felt the need to buy something, it must be important. However, doubts began to creep into my mind. After returning from a week-long work trip in June, where I had to spend 6 nights away, I recalled moments when I called him, and he sounded out of breath. He dismissed it, saying he was playing with Lily. Naively, I didn't pay much attention to the suspicious signs, partly because he was a stay-at-home parent. Despite working long hours when I came home, he was always open to intimacy, which gave me no reason to suspect infidelity. One Friday evening, I returned home and found him taking a bath. Coincidentally, I was brushing my teeth in the same bathroom. When he stood up to grab a towel, I noticed several handprints on his lower back. This puzzled me, as it had been over 2 months since I had last touched him that way. The sight of those marks haunted me. I stood there, frozen, as a flood of thoughts raced through my mind. It became clear that his once intense desire for intimacy hadn't just disappeared, it had found another outlet. I had to face the reality that if I wasn't fulfilling his needs, someone else was. The weight of suspicion began to grow as I recalled every odd incident in my memory. There was a time when I called him, and he claimed to be in one place, but deep down, I knew he was lying. Still, I had brushed it off, assuming he just didn't want to admit he was hanging out with a friend I didn't like. But now, everything started to look different. Without hesitation, I approached him while he was drying off and asked him to turn around so I could see the handprints more clearly. I asked whose hand it was, but he remained silent, deliberately avoiding my question. Finding my suspicion absurd, he abruptly left the bathroom. Frustrated, I grabbed his arm and demanded an answer, causing him to cry out in pain. When he finally spoke, he gave a ridiculous explanation, saying he had accidentally hit himself. Unsure if he was being sarcastic or sincere, he tried to leave, wrapped in a towel. I had never resorted to physical violence in our marriage, but his dismissive attitude when I asked a serious question infuriated me. In my frustration, I gripped his arms tightly, urging him to tell the truth. He expressed his dissatisfaction, accusing me of being more focused on work than our relationship. In response, I asked if this was his way of admitting to cheating, and he tried to pull away from my grasp. The fact that he was caught seemed to upset him deeply. Rather than take responsibility, he shifted the blame onto me, claiming that my dedication to work was the reason for his infidelity. A heated argument ensued, during which he brought up old issues that we had already discussed in therapy, trying to distract me from the undeniable evidence of his betrayal. His behavior clearly showed he wanted to avoid confronting the truth. During the argument, I called him cold and worthless, letting my emotions get the best of me. We shouted at each other, and in the heat of the moment, I asked if he had been having an affair. He admitted that he had been seeing one of my colleagues. In the midst of this chaos, I didn't notice Lily crying in the next room. Overwhelmed with anger, I impulsively demanded that he leave the house and go to the man he preferred over me. I forcibly escorted him out, insisting that he leave. After shutting the door behind him, he continued to pound on it relentlessly. A concerned neighbor must have called the police because an officer showed up at our door. While waiting for their arrival felt like an eternity, Nathan kept knocking, and Lily continued to sob uncontrollably. Seeing Lily so upset calmed my anger. I realized that this was not the environment in which I wanted to raise her. I knew I had to leave the house, at least for the night, to clear my head. But things took a worse turn when I hastily kicked him out, while he was only wrapped in a towel. The police didn't take kindly to this, and insisted I let him back inside, which I reluctantly did. However, I managed to secretly take his phone before leaving to spend the night at a hotel. Once there, I realized his phone was unlocked, as he had kept the same password since the beginning of our relationship. Going through his phone, I found out that a few months ago, he had confided in his mother, Susan, about his unhappiness with me and his desire to end our marriage. At first, Susan tried to encourage him to work on the relationship, but eventually, she gave up and advised him to find someone new. Surprisingly, Nathan reassured Susan that there was no need to worry since he already had plenty of potential partners. He expressed his emotional detachment and indicated that the efforts to save our marriage weren't worth the outcome. In a conversation with a friend of his, someone I never liked, he mentioned consulting a lawyer about divorce, but said he needed to secure his finances first. Interestingly, this was around the time he started quietly withdrawing money from our joint account and hiding it. He confessed to his friend that, according to his lawyer, our marriage hadn't lasted long enough for him to receive significant compensation. Because of this, he planned to stay married until he found someone better, or until he was eligible for spousal support. It hurt to realize that he had been using me all along. But what shocked me the most were the text messages from another woman, talking about their past encounters. Even worse, I found videos of him engaging in intimate acts with other women. To make matters worse, one of those videos was filmed in our home. Judging by the date, I was at work, and Lily was in the house. Additional photos on his phone further confirmed his infidelity. These photos, taken before Lily was born, showed him in provocative poses wearing leather outfits, even during trips to visit his parents. I also found pictures of him in suggestive lingerie that I had never seen before. What stunned me most was discovering images with his face hidden by emojis, which made me think he had been sending them to other men. As I looked deeper, I found a 2-year-old photo of him with 2 other women, suggesting infidelity even in the early years of our marriage. It became clear that he had been involved with at least 3 people, portraying himself as submissive in these relationships. Perhaps I was too trusting or naive, but I had never felt the need to check his phone before. That's when I realized that his love for me had never been real, and our marriage was just a convenient arrangement for him. The pain was unbearable, especially since I had always believed we had a loving family. Doubts started creeping into my mind, even about Lily. When I returned from the hotel the next day, Nathan continued to act defiantly. I kept my emotions in check, hiding the truth because I felt like nothing more than a financial resource to him. But now that the truth was out, he acted as if he had nothing left to lose. I returned his phone and told him that I had seen everything and knew the full extent of his betrayal. Sarcastically, I told him that he would make a great co-star in the adult film industry. Instead of showing any remorse, he expressed anger at me for invading his privacy and mocked my efforts to salvage our marriage. With his confession of unfaithfulness, I asked him to move out of the house. He retaliated by demanding a larger share of our assets, citing the videos and his feelings as grounds for his claim. This only solidified my belief that his actions were deliberate. Eventually, we ended up in divorce court. Initially, he agreed to equal custody of our daughter, but once I learned the truth, I fought for full custody. My lawyer was skilled, and we prepared strong evidence against him. I've hired an investigator to uncover more details about his life, including drug use and secret dealings. I'm not proud of the methods I had to use, but it's better than the situation my daughter would have been raised in. And the biggest shocker of all, this man isn't even my daughter's biological father. He lied about that too. Now, I've started a new life, and my daughter is thriving. The pain still lingers, but I know I'm on a path to healing.